I would love to hear that so that I can incorporate your feedback into future presentations. And then the worst news, which since Josh is here, Josh should probably hear this as well. So the better news is actually that I'm starting to do research at Johns Hopkins now on AI ethics. So this has literally become my full-time job outside of my actual business and the nonprofit that I run. It's taking up all my free time. But the bad news for those of you that are here as part of the Las Vegas AI Meetup is that unfortunately I'm going to have to cut something, and that's the thing that I'm going to have to cut. So I really wish I could continue doing it, but I have to make some tough decisions. And so going forward, I won't be hosting the Las Vegas AI Meetup, but if anyone is interested in taking this over from me, reach out to me. I would love to see if we can pass that torch on to someone else. All right, so with that information, let's get started. With great power comes great responsibility. Throughout human history, various societies have gained access to new technological superpowers. In many cases, these new superpowers led to amazing improvements in everyone's lives. However, in some cases, these new superpowers were abused by a few for their own power, profit, and control, often to the detriment of many less fortunate individuals. During the agricultural revolution, agricultural societies gained access or new abilities like the ability to raise large armies. They often misused this superpower for acquiring new land, enslaving human labor, and subjugating entire civilizations. During the Industrial Revolution, industrial societies gained the ability to mechanize warfare. They misused this superpower to control resources, maintain colonies, and expand their political influence. During the Information Revolution, information societies gained the ability to wage cyber warfare, and we've definitely misused this superpower for mass surveillance, industrial sabotage, and political propaganda. With the AI revolution, we're likely to see a lot of the same. We're going to discover some amazing new superpowers in just the next few years. However, there's going to be some people that are going to try to use these new powers for their own self-interest and personal agendas. The purpose of this presentation is to learn how to use AI responsibly and ethically. I want you to start thinking deeply about ethical problems that surround AI and to be better prepared to solve these problems if and when you encounter them. As an overview of our presentation, first, we'll learn about AI ethics for today, ethical issues that we're currently dealing with like privacy, bias, and transparency. Next, we'll learn about AI ethics for tomorrow, ethical issues for the next decade involving our labor economy, synthetic media, and loss of autonomy. Finally, we'll learn about AI ethics for the future, potential ethical issues for the next century involving artificial general intelligence, the value alignment problem, and existential risks to humanity. Come on in, there's plenty of seats. Feel free. Front row is the best place to heckle me. All right, so with each section in this presentation, we're going to travel out further both in our timeline and our scope. We'll start with AI ethics that are currently impacting our individual lives today. Then, we'll discuss issues that will impact our whole society for the next decade or so. Finally, we're going to widen our scope to the potential impacts that AI might have on us for the next 100 years or so. And when we go this far out, things are going to get pretty weird and maybe a bit scary. So I'm going to leave it up to you to decide which things sound plausible and which things just seem like science fiction. All right, so we've got a lot to cover. Oh, yes. Oh, sorry, I thought you were raising your hand for a question. Okay. All right, so then before we begin, it's probably important that I just introduce myself real quick so you know who I am, where I come from, and why I'm interested in this. So my name is Matthew Renze. I'm a data science consultant, author, and public speaker. As the owner of Renze Consulting, I've trained over 500,000 software developers and IT professionals. I'm also the president of Serenze Global, a nonprofit organization dedicated to providing free technology education to underrepresented individuals. And I'm currently working on my master's degree in AI at Johns Hopkins University. I'll be done next year, but I've started doing AI research in preparation for my doctorate in artificial intelligence now. And I'm a Microsoft MVP in artificial intelligence, an ASP Insider, an author for Pluralsight, Skillshare, Udemy. And just for fun, I have presented on every continent in the world, including Antarctica. All right, so we've got a lot to cover. Let's get started. First, let's discuss AI ethics for today, the ethical issues that were currently impacting our individual lives. We're going to begin with a quick story called Alice and Bob in AI Land. Chapter 1 is AI ethics of today. So meet Alice and Bob. Alice and Bob are both in their 30s. They have 2 children, Claire and Dan, who are both 10 years old. One day, Claire and Dan ask their parents for a pet. However, they can't decide on a dog or a cat. So to help them decide, Alice and Bob begin researching online. Alice clicks on a few links about the benefits of owning a cat. Bob clicks on a few videos about owning a dog. A few clicks later, Alice is surrounded by videos of cat lovers expounding the joys of cat ownership. Bob is being recommended nothing but videos about how awesome dogs are. A few more clicks, Alice starts seeing articles about how dog lovers will never understand cat lovers, and Bob starts seeing videos about from dog lovers about how cat lovers are just super weird. Alice and Bob both go down their respective rabbit holes. Soon, everything Alice sees on the internet says that cat lovers are great and dog lovers are just horrible people. Everything Bob sees tells him that dog lovers are awesome and cat lovers are terrible people. They start watching cat TV and the Dog News Network exclusively. They only read articles that support their existing beliefs about cats or dogs. They abandon or destroy friendships with people who hold the opposite views. So they start associating with only cat lovers or dog lovers respectively. Pretty soon, they're surrounded with only people and information that agrees with their worldview. Alice and Bob are now stuck in information bubbles and echo chambers. So the time finally comes for the family to vote on their new pet. Claire and Dan are excited to learn which pet they will be getting. However, Alice and Bob's conversations about the pros and cons of cats and dogs completely falls apart. Alice accuses Bob of being a horrible dog lover who kills baby kittens, and Bob accuses Alice of being a violent cat lover who kicks tiny puppies. Both start yelling at each other, slam the door as they leave. Their children, Claire and Dan, are stunned and confused. They just wanted a new pet. However, trying to come to a decision has caused a major rift in the family. Alice and Bob's home becomes a house divided. So there are a lot of benefits of modern AI. For example, we have recommendation engines that help us decide which movies to watch, which songs to listen to, and what products to buy. We have voice assistants. They listen to our commands, provide us with information, and control the devices in our homes. We have robot vacuums. They clean our carpets, mop our floors, and keep our pets entertained for hours on end. We also have navigation software. It gets us to our destination, keeps us from getting lost, and helps us to discover what's nearby. We have non-player characters in video games. They make playing games more interesting, challenging, and fun. And we have large language models like ChatGPT. They help us generate emails, summarize articles, debug our code, and much more. And there are a multitude of other benefits from modern AI, more benefits than we could possibly enumerate in this short presentation. However, these benefits come at a cost of new ethical issues that we're now facing. These modern AI ethical issues come in many forms. First, we have these recommendation rabbit holes. Recommendation engines are designed to provide us with useful content that we might like. However, they are also designed to maximize user engagement. They need to keep us clicking on more content in order to maximize ad revenue. And this can quickly lead us down rabbit holes of progressively more extreme content because controversial topics keep us clicking on new content just to see what happens next. Eventually, this can end up with people stuck in information bubbles, a place where all of the recommendation engines on the entire internet are showing us only what we want to consume. And this leads to echo chambers where everyone that we interact with is essentially agreeing with our worldview. We stop engaging with people of opposing viewpoints or even moderate views of the world. This can lead to conspiratorial thinking and extremist worldviews, and in the worst case, it's led to suicide, violence, and even terrorist attacks. It can also lead to various forms of internet addiction, for example, unhealthy addictions to social media, news, novelty, or internet pornography. Next, we have lack of privacy. And now, there are numerous examples of AI being used to potentially violate our privacy. AI-enabled surveillance systems monitor our movement throughout buildings, cities, and even entire countries now. Our public social media data can be used to predict private information about us, like our sexual orientation, political affiliation, behavioral traits, and even our mental health issues. Our shopping history can be used to predict whether we're pregnant, and with a relatively high accuracy, even estimate our due date. And our anonymized data can be de-anonymized by joining multiple data sets together. It takes just 3 pieces of data, your date of birth, your gender, and your zip code, to de-anonymize your data with about 97% accuracy. The reality is, we currently have very little privacy, and we're about to get a lot less. Essentially, what does privacy even mean in a world with constant and pervasive AI surveillance? Third, we have algorithmic bias and discrimination. There are numerous examples of AI producing biased results. The Compass algorithm, which provides risk scores for criminal defendants, was roughly twice as likely to label black defendants as high risk of criminal reoffense, regardless of their actual risk. Resume screening algorithms routinely prefer male candidates over female candidates, even with identical qualifications. Even if we remove the gender data, the AI algorithms learn to infer gender from subtle nuances in the language that both men and women use. Facial recognition algorithms also have a higher failure rate at recognizing dark skin tones in female faces compared to light-skinned males. And AI image generators frequently lighten people's skin tones to conform with societal standards of beauty, and they tend to hypersexualize women and young girls in their image outputs as well. The general issue with bias in AI is that we have human bias in our labeled training data. If your data is biased, your results will be biased. Garbage in, garbage out. Unfortunately, algorithmic bias can create these feedback loops that reinforce existing societal stereotypes. And this can lead to long-term, higher-order, multi-generational effects, further reinforcing these societal stereotypes for discrimination for generations to come. Fourth, we have lack of trust in AI predictions and decision-making. There's a lack of transparency in many of our opaque AI systems. However, we need to have this transparency in order to contest incorrect decisions that an AI system makes that negatively impact us. Black box deep neural networks make predictions that even their creators can't understand. Often, these models are unnecessarily complex just to squeeze out a few bits of accuracy or a tiny bit more accuracy than a less complex, more transparent model. Adversarial attacks allow bad actors to trick AIs into making incorrect decisions. For example, just a minor modification to a traffic stop sign can make it invisible to self-driving cars. And there's the uncanny valley, that space between a cute toy-like robot and a real human being. We naturally distrust things that look almost like us, but have subtle inhuman differences. But wait, there's more. We have AI hallucination, the phenomena of generative models making up completely believable yet entirely false information when they don't know the correct answer. Problems with misinformation generated on a massive scale, and this can lead to propaganda, distrust in institutions, conspiracies, and extremist worldviews. And finally, a lack of basic AI education. Unfortunately, most people don't understand AI's capabilities and its limitations, so they can't make effective decisions about AI. Fortunately, there are several potential solutions to these problems of modern artificial intelligence. First, we can escape our information bubbles by avoiding these recommendation rabbit holes. For users of AI systems, we should use privacy tools that prevent recommendation engines from sending us down these internet rabbit holes. For example, using incognito mode, clearing your browser history, disabling cookies, etc. Or not browser history, but clearing your history in an application. Use filters to block specific keywords that might lead you towards extremist content. And stop using click holes, which are websites and social media that are intentionally designed psychologically to continuously pull you further and further down these rabbit holes. Now, as creators of AI systems, those of us building these systems, we need to give users options to opt out of recommendations that they don't want. Value the end user's mental health, social good, and objective truth above ad revenue and profits. And support sensible regulations that protect us from the dangers of these recommendation engines. Second, protect your privacy. As users of AI systems, we should once again use privacy tools like incognito mode, disable cookies, and use a VPN when necessary. Use throwaway email accounts, throwaway usernames, and one-time credit card numbers. I use all of this stuff whenever I need to protect my information. And stop using data harvesting websites and mobile apps that are gratuitously just there to collect and sell your data. And now, as creators of AI systems, we should provide users with opt-out options for data harvesting and resale of data to third parties, use strong anonymization and encryption technologies to protect user data, and support sensible privacy regulations like the EU's GDPR and California's CCPA. Only trust your private data to those that you can trust will protect it. And if you are entrusted with the private data of others, be sure that you can and will protect it. Third, we need to eliminate bias and discrimination from our algorithms as much as possible. As creators of AI systems, we should use diverse and balanced data sets when training our machine learning models, exclude protected attributes like race, gender, and sexual orientation from training and inference. However, you also need to watch out for variable leakage through weakly correlated variables that predict a protected variable indirectly. Detect bias in your models using techniques like shape, lime, perturbations, and surrogate models. Use fairness metrics to determine if your models are biased against specific subgroups. Continuously monitor and retrain your models to prevent model drift over time. And support sensible regulations that protect fairness and minimize bias and discrimination. Fourth, we need to create more trustworthy AI systems. As creators of AI systems, we need to choose transparency over black box AI systems when possible, Essentially, if you can't explain a decision that your model has made to a judge, or the judge wouldn't understand your explanation, it is not transparent. You need to do something else. So I always recommend to use the simplest solution that possibly solves the problem. Don't use a deep neural network if a simple decision tree classifier will suffice. Use explainable AI techniques like shape and lime and surrogate models again in order to make our models more predictable or interpretable, and provide end users with explanation in natural language when possible, language they will understand. Make uncertainty more obvious by providing users with measures like accuracy, false positive rates, mean squared error, and then confidence scores around your individual predictions. And keep a human in the loop. Don't allow potentially dangerous AI systems to be fully autonomous. We also need to provide recourse when an AI's decision negatively impacts a user. If your users and your stakeholders don't trust your AI systems, they will not use them. Beyond this, we need to fight misinformation with critical thinking. For every piece of content you consume, you need to ask yourself, who is the author and what are their credentials? Who is the publisher and how reputable are they? What are the claims that the author is making? How strong is the evidence in support of their arguments? What are the sources of their evidence? And then be skeptical about everything you see on the internet, but also keep an open mind. Maybe take a break from social media or get off social media altogether. I mean, we know it's addictive and it's really not good for our mental health, but we just continue to use it every day. Sounds like an addiction. Finally, just talk to other people. Meet people that are different from you. Make friends with them and learn about their culture, their perspectives, their amazing food. After having visited over 50 countries on every continent in the world, I can safely say that we are way more similar than we are different. Almost everybody I've met wants the same things. They want to be safe, they want to be happy, and they want to be loved. That's pretty much it. So what about Alice and Bob? How are they doing after their argument over cats and dogs? Well, Alice and Bob currently aren't speaking to one another. However, their kids, Dan and Claire, learned about recommendation algorithms in school that day. They explained to their parents how recommendation algorithms can pull them down rabbit holes. And they say that this leads to information bubbles and echo chambers that can lead to potentially extremist worldviews. So Alice and Bob decide to take a break from social media. They begin talking to other pet owners, actually in person. They learn that most dog lovers don't hate cats, and most cat lovers have nothing against dogs. They even meet families that have both cats and dogs and love them equally. So the family gets together for another vote on a pet. This time together as a family, they decide to get both a cat and a dog. They discover that their family functions better with both cat lovers and dog lovers, and they live happily ever after, at least until Chapter 2, AI Ethics for Tomorrow. Oh, there's more coming. Alice and Bob will make a return. All right, so next, let's discuss AI ethics for tomorrow. Ethical issues that our society will likely be dealing with for the next decade or so. All right, so back to Alice and Bob in AI land. Chapter 2, AI Ethics of Tomorrow. So Alice and Bob are now in their 40s. They both still live in their family home with their cat and their dog. However, their two children, Claire and Dan, are now both 20 years old, and so they moved out a few years ago. Alice still works as an accountant. Bob is a builder at the local factory. Unfortunately, Alice loses her job to her accounting job to software automation. And Bob loses his job at the factory to robotic automation. Both search for new jobs, but neither can find one in their hometown. With a lack of income, they're concerned that they might have to sell their family home. So they invite the kids over for dinner to tell them the bad news. Claire is now a computer scientist who lives in the neighboring town to the west, and Dan is a data scientist who lives in the neighboring town to the east. The parents explain how they can't find any jobs that they're qualified for, and the kids, totally surprised, mention how they're constantly being offered new jobs and salary increases. Alice says, well, that's because all the alpha-lineals are taking all of our jobs. And Bob says, no, it's the outsiders from the east and the west neighborhoods taking all the good jobs. The children, both alpha-lineals from the east and the west neighborhoods, take offense. The whole family gets into a screaming match at the dinner table. And now everyone is upset, dinner has been ruined, and even the cat and dog aren't speaking to one another. So the AI of tomorrow will certainly provide us with many benefits. For example, we're going to have the ability to automate a wider variety of manual labor and knowledge work. We'll have autonomous vehicles that will automate automobiles, semis, tractors, boats, and likely airplanes. We'll have autonomous delivery drones that will transport packages straight to our doorstep. We'll have highly personalized software that will automate routine, repetitive, and unnecessary decisions from our workflow. We'll have lightweight virtual reality and augmented reality that will extend our senses with new information. We'll have domestic robots that will perform a lot of our household chores. We'll have smart buildings that optimize their own energy efficiency and anticipate the needs of their occupants. We'll have smart cities that will optimize municipal resources like electricity, water, waste, and traffic with little to no human intervention. And all of this is going to have the additional benefit of creating higher paying and more meaningful high-tech jobs. However, the AI-enabled technologies of the next decade are definitely going to come with some significant issues. First, the automation of many existing jobs is likely going to create significant unemployment. The jobs most likely to be eliminated are those that are simple, repetitious, costly, dangerous, or error-prone. And the jobs most likely to remain are those that are complex, creative, compassionate, empathetic, or require building trust. According to the McKinsey Global Institute, by 2030, AI is expected to automate approximately 600 million jobs. That's roughly 22% of all jobs that currently exist, gone in under 10 years. Fortunately, they're also predicting 700 million new jobs will be created by 2030, many of which will be jobs that require AI tech skills. However, this is going to be a tremendous disruption to our labor economy in less than a decade. This will be the fastest and most disruptive labor transformation we've seen in history. Unfortunately, our labor market is not prepared for such a rapid transition from low-skilled jobs to higher tech jobs. And our businesses, governments, universities, and social safety nets are definitely not prepared for any of this either. As a result, there's going to be a lot of people that are going to be left behind and stuck in very difficult economic situations. Third, we have AI-generated synthetic media. The content that artificial intelligence can create today is virtually indistinguishable from human-generated content. However, AI can now produce this synthetic media on a scale that we've never seen before. We have text generation software like ChatGPT, which can generate propaganda and misinformation on a massive scale. And this could lead to campaigns of misinformation so overwhelming that it'll be tough to know what is real and what is fake. We have deep fake technology that can be used to impersonate politicians, celebrities, and executives, and has been done so for nefarious purposes. And now, and this is scary to me, con artists are extorting money from parents by claiming that they have kidnapped their children and then play their voice synthesized or generated using deep fakes of the kid's voice in distress and pleading for help. We have deep nude technology that can digitally remove a person's clothing without their consent, and this technology is currently being used for blackmail and exploitation. And synthetic media is also creating a phenomenon we call hyperreality. So when we're constantly bombarded with these synthetic images of perfectly beautiful people with perfect lifestyles that are physically not attainable, this is going to lead to an entire new generation of body dysmorphias, depression, and virtual escapism. Synthetic media may also lead to unhealthy relationships with virtual romantic partners and digital clones of deceased loved ones. Given the issues that we're already seeing with synthetic media today, and there's a lot of them we're seeing today, you can only imagine how difficult these issues are going to be in the next decade and beyond. It's going to be really difficult for the average person to discern what is real versus what is fake. Fourth, we have problems with lack of agency and autonomy, which is the issue of AI taking away our ability to make independent decisions or AI just outright manipulating us. For example, with just 10 likes on various Facebook posts, an AI system knows you as well as a work colleague. With just 70 likes, it knows you as well as a friend or a roommate. 150 likes, it knows you as well as a family member. 300 likes, as well as your spouse. And soon, it may know you better than you know yourself. With this level of insight into our behaviors, mental states, and psychological weaknesses, AI will have the ability to manipulate our decisions, all while making us believe that we are in control of our decisions the entire time. AI has access to behavioral data that allows it to determine if we're pregnant, have issues with addictions, or in the middle of a mental health crisis. And using this data, these AI systems can specifically time and target its manipulations when it knows we're weakest or most easily influenced. So we're leaving the world of broadcast advertising and entering the era of surveillance capitalism, a time when corporations use your personal information to manipulate you and your purchase decisions in ways that you simply just can't defeat. We give up a lot of freedoms to AI already when we turn over control to them in our self-driving cars, home monitoring systems, and smartphones with a myriad of sensors recording everything we do. However, someday AI might be able to physically prevent us from acting freely of our own volition. What happens when we have full-time wearable body sensors, essentially capturing the information about everything we do, and ubiquitous and fully integrated surveillance networks in every city, and potentially neural implants? I mean, will you even be able to break a law that you feel is unjust or protest against laws you feel are unjust if your self-driving car or a neural implant physically prevents you from doing so? But there's even more complex issues coming with the next decades of AI technology. Organizations with powerful AI systems and tons of data to train these AI systems will have even more power than those unfortunately, will have less power without them. And this is going to be very difficult for organizations, individuals, and even governments to compete against these AI behemoths. And this is likely going to lead to greater social stratification unless we do something to fix this problem. The rich will end up getting richer, the poor will get poorer until only a small fraction of society has virtually all of the resources, and the rest of us end up with nothing. There's also safety issues with AI in the future. What happens if a self-driving car needs to make a split-second decision between hitting a child or swerving, which kills the driver? Who would even buy a car that would prioritize killing the owner in this hypothetical trolley car scenario? And finally, we have ethical issues that we need to deal with lethal autonomous weapon systems. Right now, all of the weapon systems are semi-autonomous with a human-operated kill or no-kill switch. However, they're literally just one step away from being fully autonomous weapons that exist, and they're really good at their job, we'll put it that way. So how do we solve all of these ethical issues with tomorrow's AI? Now, over the next decade, we're going to have to make some heavy investments in responsible and ethical AI. First, we need to educate everybody in society on basic AI literacy. Everyone needs to understand what AI is and what it isn't. We need to understand the basics of machine learning, deep learning, and reinforcement learning. We need to understand the pros and cons of these various types of AI. We need to understand their capabilities and their limitations. We need to understand how AI is going to impact our lives, our careers, and our world. And we need to understand the ethical issues that AI presents now and in the future. Literally everything starts with AI education. Second, we need to upgrade our skills for an AI-driven economy. We need job retraining programs for those who will become unemployed. We need better retirement options for those who are too old to reskill. We need to create social safety nets for those who become unemployed in order to help them get back on their feet. We may even need free or mandatory higher education for everyone. We're talking like 2-year community colleges, 4-year universities, or trade schools. And I understand this is very controversial, but as a side note, mandatory high school education was extremely controversial at the beginning of the century, the early 1900s. However, it was arguably one of the best decisions the United States had ever made at the time to help us transition from a largely agricultural and industrial society to an information and services economy. Really smart in the long run. And we may also need economic systems to redistribute wealth throughout our economy. So many economic experts are advocating either like a universal basic income, a negative income tax, a social stipend, or some other form of universal basic ownership. Now, in terms of synthetic media, we have a few potential solutions. We can create deep fake detection tools that automatically filter real versus synthetic media. We may need to create digital alibi services to ensure that you can prove where you were and what you were doing 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Imagine like actors, politicians, celebrities, essentially they can verify, no, I wasn't doing this thing you saw on social media because all of the data, which is auditable, shows that I was doing this instead at that time. And we may need to use information verification services that will essentially vet or verify third-party information on our behalf. We may need to add cryptographic watermarks to literally everything, every digital piece of information, or store every digital piece of information on the blockchain, like a hash of it, including the creation, modification, and display of every single piece of digital content, so there's an auditable trail that we can follow to determine if anything had been modified and exactly when it was taken. We need to adopt a default mode of skepticism when we see information that's either too good or too bad to be true. And we need better regulation around the use of synthetic media for nefarious purposes. To solve issues involving AI taking away our autonomy and agency, our solutions are pretty similar to the solutions for maintaining privacy. However, we may also need AI regulations to prevent AI-enabled manipulation. We also need to solve these issues with AI safety. We need to train and test these potentially dangerous systems in AI simulations, and then keep a human overseeing these systems if they're involved in any kind of dangerous situations, and develop sensible regulation frameworks around AI safety. Finally, to solve ethical issues with autonomous weapons, we can use our existing protections from our current international treaties. They're actually pretty good at covering this stuff, but we may need to ban fully autonomous weapon systems globally. And we should always keep a human in the loop anytime an AI system has to make a life or death decision. All right, so what about Alice and Bob? How are they doing after their argument with the kids about job loss? Well, after dinner, everyone stormed off and went to bed. However, the next day, Claire and Dan decide to have a one-on-one conversation with their parents. They suggest that Alice and Bob should consider upskilling and seeking new higher tech jobs. They show the information on higher growth. Information on higher growth, demand, and pay for new high-tech jobs. As a result, Alice takes some online courses on AI-assisted accounting, and Bob takes classes at the community college on getting certified as a robotics technician. With her new skills, Alice gets a new job managing an AI automated accounting system, and Bob also gets a new job training and maintaining factory robots. Alice and Bob's new jobs are higher paying, more rewarding, and more meaningful. The whole family meets again for dinner to discuss Alice and Bob's new jobs and their success. And they all live happily ever after until Chapter 3, AI Ethics of the Future. All right, so finally, let's discuss AI ethics for the future, potential ethical issues that our world might be dealing with for the next 100 years or so. All right, back to Alice and Bob. So Chapter 3, AI Ethics of the Future. This is where things start to get weird, if they weren't weird already. So Alice and Bob are now in their 80s. Claire and Dan now are in their 60s, and Claire and Dan both have one child each. Claire has a daughter named Emma, and Dan has a son named Fred. Emma and Fred are both in their 20s. Emma and Fred come home to visit their grandparents, Alice and Bob. While they're at dinner, or having dinner, Alice and Bob ask them, "So, what's new?" Emma tells them that she's considering tech augmentation. She wants to upgrade her biological body with cybernetics and nanotechnology. Fred says that he's in a relationship with a sentient AI and is planning to get married. Alice can't believe that Emma would want to modify her body with technology. She says no granddaughter of mine will ever become a cyborg. Bob says that he can't believe Fred would ever want to marry an AI. He says no grandson of mine will ever marry a toaster. Emma explains that her tech augmentations will make her smarter, stronger, and healthier. And Fred explains that his AI partner is not a toaster. They are a conscious being that has rights just like Alice and Bob. An argument breaks out, everyone starts yelling, and both the grandkids decide that it's time to leave. Alice and Bob are now sitting alone in their home, sad that their grandkids stormed out. Alice says, all of this new technology is ruining our family. Bob says, the world's changing so fast, I just don't understand it anymore. Alice and Bob both feel lost in a world they no longer recognize. All right, so there are going to be many amazing benefits of future AI over the next century. More benefits than we could possibly enumerate, and some we probably can't even imagine, like literally can't even imagine. For example, in the next century, we will likely develop artificial general intelligence, also known as general AI. General AI, by definition, will be able to perform any task that the average human will be able to perform, and it will be able to adapt flexibly to solve a wide variety of problems, just like human beings do. AI may help us improve human health in astonishing ways. It may be able to cure all diseases, prevent aging, even minimize human suffering. And it may also help us increase our intelligence or strength and give us other superhuman abilities. AI may also help us solve the biggest challenges we face today and in the future. It may help us fix global warming, eliminate poverty, create better political systems, and more efficient and equitable economies. However, there will almost certainly be significant problems with future AI technologies. First, humans could become obsolete. Now, imagine if you were to ask a horse in the early 1900s how the automobile or tractor would have changed its life. Probably would have told you, oh yeah, an automobile or tractor is going to make my life a lot easier. Well, unfortunately for the horse, these technologies also made them obsolete to the economy. In fact, we hit peak horse right in 1915, just as the automobile and tractor began to scale up in production. So now imagine the following scenario. AI automates all of the jobs of real economic value. As a result, the majority of humans on planet Earth become unemployed. Without productive jobs, most humans produce negative economic value, as the economists would say. We essentially cost more than we produce. Humans would then progressively lose more economic power and control. We eventually could become obsolete in a world that we created, just like the horses did when we replaced them with tractors and automobiles. Second, there are genuine concerns that AI could cause the collapse of modern institutions. AI could literally break capitalism and democracy. We're already beginning to see evidence of the erosion of these institutions under the early waves of our current, and by the way, very primitive AI by future standards. The pace of technology is already changing faster than our institutions and our social norms can keep up. What happens when we have a new major scientific discovery or new AI capabilities on a daily basis? Right now, AI is moving so fast, there's literally a big breakthrough happening every week, and I don't know when this is going to slow down. How will we, as individuals, organizations, institutions, governments, and whole societies keep up with this rate of change? And what happens when our current society or what happens to our current society if our modern institutions collapse under the weight of this AI? We could easily end up in a dystopian future. We could see a return of authoritarianism. An AI-enabled surveillance system would give it authoritarian. Wow, that was weird. I just blanked out. Authoritarian leaders. It would give them the ultimate form of control. We could see a return of communism. A super efficient AI-enabled economy might easily be able to outcompete free market capitalism. We could see a return of fascism. A technologically modified group of superhumans might view themselves as a superior race. We could end up with a new AI religion based on the worship of an AI as a deity. It sounds weird, but a super intelligent, super powerful, and globally distributed AI would definitely seem omniscient, omnipotent, omnipresent, and immortal to a bunch of people. Or we could end up with a dystopian AI bureaucracy like in THX 1138. People become nothing more than cogs in this giant machine, bureaucratic machine built to serve the AI. Or instead of a return to one of these old dystopias, we might see the rise of something entirely new. For example, dataism, a worldview that prioritizes humans as data processing nodes over prioritizing individual human experiences and emotions. Essentially a world where humans only exist to provide their information and experiences to the great data flow as described by Yuval Noah Harari. And this already sounds like social media today to me, where everyone's essentially just taking pictures to post rather than to experience reality. Fourth, we will likely see ethical issues with artificial superintelligence or super AI. If we create an artificial intelligence, then an intelligence explosion will likely soon follow. A general AI that can write code better than the average software developer can rewrite its own code. A self-improving AI would rapidly become more capable and powerful than even the smartest human on the planet. Without the biological limitations of a human brain, essentially this would lead to artificial superintelligence. A super AI would rapidly become more intelligent than any human being, and eventually all human beings combined. As a result, it would become extremely difficult, if not impossible, for us to control it. By the time we have a strategy to defeat it in place, it would already be decades ahead with its countermeasures. However, the long-term issue that I am most concerned with is something we call the value alignment problem. How do we ensure that AI's goals and values stay aligned with human goals and values? I mean, we can barely agree on our own values across different cultures. How can we possibly get an AI to agree that it should align with our human values? Now, imagine if an AI were to iteratively evolve to maximize a single objective function, like we do with reinforcement learning, but without a biological body or the ability to experience pain or suffering. I mean, it would almost certainly become a hyper-rational, high-functioning sociopath, and I doubt many of you think that that really agrees with our current worldview. In addition, AI systems, especially reinforcement learning systems, are highly sensitive to rewards. They quickly discover loopholes in simulations and then begin exploiting those loopholes continuously, and we call this reward hacking. Ultimately, with explicit deterministic reward functions, there will always be something that we fail to account for. This is essentially what Isaac Asimov was trying to teach us all those decades ago with his 3 laws of robotics in the book I, Robot. There will always be unintended consequences that we didn't account for. As Norbert Wiener says, we had better be sure that the purpose that we put into the machine is the purpose which we actually desire. So a lack of AI alignment could lead to scenarios where we completely lose control of AI, the AI run amok scenarios. So as a hypothetical, imagine that we were to create an economy composed of 3 parts. Automated robots that mine asteroids, automated robots that convert asteroid raw materials into new parts for new robots, and automated robots that assemble more robots to mine, refine, and convert asteroids into new robots. This would essentially be a fully automated, self-sustaining economy. No human beings would need to be involved. How do you keep it from mining every asteroid in the solar system to build an army of more asteroid mining robots? And what happens when it runs out of asteroids to mine? I mean, Earth would probably look like a giant asteroid to an army of hungry asteroid mining robots. Or as a more simple scenario, just imagine that you would build an AI that its objective is to make paperclips. How do you prevent it from turning everything on planet Earth into paperclips? And with self-replicating nanotechnology, this is what we refer to as the gray goo scenario. Look it up, it's pretty interesting. Finally, AI could lead to the end of humanity. Now, imagine that AI and human values do go out of alignment. At first, AI might see us like a non-threat, like a stupid pet. Then it might see us as a nuisance, kind of like ants at a picnic. Then it might see us as raw materials, just fleshy bags of carbon and water that could probably be put to better use for its own objectives. It might see us as competition for shared resources that it needs for its own objectives. Finally, it might see us as a threat and aim to destroy us for its own survival. And now, when competing with an artificial superintelligence in a battle for survival, I mean, it almost certainly ends with human beings losing. So, that's all grim. What can we do to hopefully prevent some of these dire situations from happening? Fortunately, there are a few potential solutions that people are looking into to minimize the risks of future dystopias for humanity. First, be mindful. Many of the issues that humanity is currently facing are the result of a conflict between our evolution and our technology. We evolved to survive in environments with very short bursts of high stress and then long periods of recovery. However, the modern society that we have created is constantly triggering our stressors with technologies, things beeping at us all the time and demanding our attention, which leads to chronic stress, anxiety, and depression. Mindfulness is the antidote to many of these mental health diseases of our modern society. So, be mindful. Compassion and empathy for others is a key component of mindfulness practices. So, we need to treat our fellow human beings with respect. The best way that we can teach AI our values is to actually live them ourselves. We also need to be mindful with our technology. It's way too easy to mindlessly just use technology without care or reflection. And when we finally do create sentient AI, which I assume we probably will someday, we need to treat it with respect as well. Second, embrace change. Rather than fearing change, try embracing it instead. Unfortunately, if you try to fight against a world that is demanding change with or without you, or is going to change with or without you, you're going to lose every time. So embrace change and adapt to whatever comes next. Be skeptical about things that currently disagree with your current beliefs, but try to keep an open mind to new ideas as well. And use technology where it provides real benefits for us, and eliminate it where it causes us more harm than good. We refer to this as the Amish approach to technology, which is a very misunderstood thing. They use technologies that benefit the community. They eliminate technologies that harm the community. Third, we need to align AI values and human values. When building these AI systems, we want to embed our human values into these systems. So focus on rewarding goal states rather than actions when using reinforcement learning. Utilize techniques like reinforcement learning via human feedback, collaborative inverse reinforcement learning, and inverse reward design. Train systems to imitate human actions or seek human approval, just like children do. That's how they learn. They want a parent's approval. Build in uncertainty into the AI systems so that they don't confidently do something that ends up being wrong. Prefer to keep your options open to avoid irreversible actions, which we call attainable utility preservation. And provide the ability to intervene if an AI makes a decision or chooses an action out of alignment with our values, which we call corrugability. We might also be able to use AI systems in order to monitor other AI systems to keep everybody in check. Finally, no matter how things play out over the next few decades, there are essentially only 3 paths forward for humanity. I've thought about this for over 20 years. I cannot come up with a 4th path. If you can think of one, let me know, because I'd love to talk about it. So the first path is that AI and humanity peacefully coexist together forever. AI destroys humanity if we don't accidentally destroy ourselves first, or AI and humanity eventually merge and become one and the same. Now, if you really think about it, there's not another path, at least that I am aware of. These are the only real possibilities in the long run. So, given humanity's track record in similar situations, it seems unlikely that humans will be able to peacefully coexist with a super intelligent AI forever. We've just seen too many past scenarios where a sufficiently advanced civilization displaced the indigenous population. It's much more likely that we're either going to accidentally destroy ourselves or AI will eventually displace us. And this might be good for AI, but it's definitely bad news for us humans. So, given these 3 options, the most realistic and yet hopeful path forward for humanity is that we eventually merge with our technology. Essentially, we merge to the extent that there is no distinction between artificial intelligence and human intelligence. They're essentially one and the same. Which leads us to our last potential solution. Merge with our technology to avoid human extinction. If we merge our humanity with our technology, then there is no us versus them. No AI versus humans. There's only us, no one else to fight against. And now, this idea, I agree, seems really far-fetched to me, but these cell phones are an extension of our brains. And the younger generation is ready and willing to have them directly connected to their minds if and when the technology becomes available. In many ways, we're already augmenting our human bodies and minds with man-made technologies on a daily basis. For example, wearable devices, artificial limbs, pacemakers, contact lenses, cochlear implants, you name it. In the next decade and beyond, it's likely that we'll be even more deeply and continuously connected to our technology. Coming soon are lightweight augmented reality glasses, implantable IoT devices, low-cost gene editing, and eventually brain-computer interfaces. Now, some of you might be thinking that this sounds a lot like the Borg from Star Trek. However, the Borg were fictional characters based on what technology would look like if things went horribly wrong for us. Now, what would the world look like if we were able to merge with our technologies in ways that actually benefited everyone? The reality might look a lot more utopian than dystopian. It may sound strange, but we are likely one of the last generations of Homo sapiens to inhabit planet Earth. Whatever comes next is going to be very different than what we've known for the past 300,000 years. So, what about Alice and Bob? What happened to them after their argument with their grandchildren? Well, Alice and Bob decided to put their personal opinions aside. They love their grandkids and they want to be part of their lives. So they learn about the techno-sapien movement that Emma is part of. They learn that tech augmentation really isn't all that different from their glasses, hearing aids, pacemakers, or artificial knees. They spend time learning about artificial sentience to better understand Fred's relationship with a sentient AI. They talk to Fred's AI partner to learn more about its thoughts, feelings, goals, and values, and they realize that sentient AI really isn't all that different from us. Alice and Bob also learn about mindfulness. They discover how to find a balance between technology and humanity. They use technology where it's most beneficial and eliminate it where it's not useful. Alice and Bob learn to adapt to a changing world. They also learn to embrace change rather than fight it. So they invite their grandchildren over to tell them about everything that they've learned. Emma and Fred are happy to hear that their grandparents have learned to adapt to the high-tech future world they live in, and that they're embracing change rather than fighting against it. Once again, they all live happily ever after. Until chapter 4, welcome our robot overlords. No, I'm just kidding. All right, I just gonna wrap it up real quick. All right, so today we learned a few things about AI ethics. We learned about ethical issues for today, solutions to problems like privacy, bias, and transparency, AI ethics for tomorrow, potential problems involving our labor economy, synthetic media, and lack of autonomy. And finally, we pondered AI ethical issues of the future, potential solutions to potential problems with artificial superintelligence, the potential collapse of our institutions, and the value alignment problem. If you'd like to learn more, please check out my website. I have tons of free articles, videos, courses, you name it, and more on this topic and everything else in that space. 1 second. So, how does our story end? Well, technology is inherently amoral. It is neither intrinsically good nor evil. The same technology can be used to take mankind to the moon, or it can be used to propel warheads into cities. As a result, it's going to be up to us as a society to choose whether we want to use AI to make the world a better place for everyone, or to use it for our own power, profit, and control. With great power comes great responsibility. And with AI, we have just been given the greatest superpower that humankind has ever known. Thank you. Question?
Just one quick question.
Sure.
Did ChatGPT write that?
No. So I do use ChatGPT for ideation sessions with my presentations, and literally one of the last projects I worked at Johns Hopkins was taking scripts that I'd previously written and generating slides from those scripts. And it was pretty interesting. It got extremely good at recreating my style, but it couldn't make the cartoons and stuff like that. So yeah, but I use it 24/7. Like literally more than I use Google, I use ChatGPT to help me with work. Yes?
So obviously, like you mentioned, like AI is evolving almost like on a daily basis.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like the moment you start learning a tool, there's already one that
Yep.
makes it irrelevant.
Yep.
how do you recommend business owners stay on the cutting edge of that technology without having to like constantly pivot? Because it seems like a real opportunity for competitive advantage, at least for the next couple of years, while everyone's just overwhelmed with what's happening.
I'm completely in agreement with that. In fact, I have a presentation called Developing Your AI Business Strategy, which focuses exactly on that topic. I think in general, if I just had to give a couple of high-level takeaways, education for everyone in the organization about AI. Really got to know what the pros and cons are, capabilities, limitations, be able to speak the language so that everyone on the team knows what you're talking about when you say, oh, we've got a deep reinforcement learning model with an accuracy or an area under the curve of blah, blah, blah in terms of its performance. Then having an actual strategy or vision for the company that incorporates artificial intelligence. If you don't have buy-in from the high-level leadership, this will inevitably fail. Like every time I've tried to fight a company as a consultant where the top leadership doesn't buy in, it just doesn't work. And then beyond that, I think having a culture that embraces AI, and not just AI, but data science and experimentation, where the company is willing to run a lot of experiments, knowing that most of them are going to fail. And every now and then we have one that succeeds. But we don't look at a failed experiment as a failure of an individual or of the team. We look at it as an opportunity to have learned something. We learned how not to do something. And just like, was it Thomas Edison? I've learned hundreds of ways how not to make a light bulb, but that led to the one way to do it correctly. And that's the mindset we have to embrace. And it really comes down to the way we incentivize certain behaviors within the organization. Do we reward people who try and experiment even though they know it's highly likely to fail? Or do we punish them because, oh, you should have known better? And that culture is just critical to making this happen. Hopefully that answers your question. We can talk more about it afterwards too if you want.
I think the other part of it was like, do you see any underrated opportunities right now of AI technology
Oh,
that you
a lot.
take advantage of?
A lot.
That will give you a competitive advantage?
All I have to do is walk around the city and I see all sorts of opportunities. And these things will probably be automated as soon as somebody figures it out. It's almost like a hobby of mine as I'm going throughout the world, walking through an airport or walking through a city to see how difficult would it be for me to automate that specific task. And it's astonishing how many tasks I see on a day-to-day basis that are now within current technological capabilities. We just either don't have a business case for it yet, someone hasn't discovered they could do it, or it's coming. It's just going to be a couple more months or another year. But literally, there's not a whole lot of jobs I can't see at least a way to automate a good percentage of the tasks that are done. And that's important. Most jobs are not going to be entirely automated. We're going to automate more and more tasks, but one person will essentially be able to do the work of 10, maybe 100 people. Essentially, most of us will end up either managing automated software systems, building, training them, or essentially babysitting robots if you're doing like physical labor or factory work. Yeah.
I was wondering, how is AI being integrated into public school education?
Great question. Yeah, it's a great question. So right now, ChatGPT is all the rage, especially in conversations at universities. I'm seeing two approaches to it. Number one is they just flat out ban it. You are not allowed to use ChatGPT for anything. It's considered cheating. The other strategy is essentially you can use it as long as you tell us how you've used it. And I think the approach of like a calculator, at one point in time, we have to learn how to do the math by hand because you can't fully understand it. But then once you've got the basics down, you shouldn't have to do the rote, number like addition, subtraction, arithmetic every time as you're solving more and more complex problems. So we start to integrate calculators, but use them responsibly. Show your work and let us know where you use the calculator. And so I think the same thing's going to happen with ChatGPT and these other AI technologies. We teach them the foundations first, then we show them how to use the tools, and then we almost expect them to use the tools in order to compete at the same level as their peers. Because, and this is, I don't say this lightly, I am easily 10 to 100 times more productive at a whole variety of tasks that I do on a daily basis using tools like ChatGPT, Stable Diffusion, GitHub Copilot. Like, it has fundamentally changed my workflow for the better, and it is easy for me to say that we have actually entered a new era of computing in just the last 6 months. Yeah. The other thing to keep in mind with public education, and are either of you teachers?
I'm
Retired? Okay. Okay. And so I recognize that this may sound a bit controversial as I say it out loud, but with the Industrial Revolution and the Information Revolution, we did see orders of magnitude increases in productivity in a whole variety of different industries, factories, office work, you name it. But in terms of the education system, they haven't seen the same returns yet, and they couldn't really figure out why this was. And it may simply be that we just didn't have the technologies necessary to see one teacher being able to amplify their productivity. And so we could actually see a fundamental change to education where, and once again, I'm not an expert on this, so I apologize if this is way off, but we could see a future where children, like teachers don't teach the kids, they oversee the children's self-education. So the children teach one another using these tools that they can learn from, and then the teachers can invest more of their time in the more human aspects of education. Yeah.
The average person that you will interact with as a cashier in a store cannot make change from $1 in their hand.
That's right.
They graduated high school.
Yeah.
So I can't imagine once AI has taken things that much further, what's going to happen to that person. And it's not a single person, it's,
Yeah.
you know.
I hear you. And I would definitely say look to what's happening in countries like Finland, Sweden, and Norway with their education system. They're outperforming everyone else in the world right now, and they've embraced this. So, in fact, I think, Finland may actually have it was the first worldwide education program on AI. They literally created a curriculum for every one of their citizens and then just made it freely available for the entire world. It was cutting edge at the time. It's a great program, too. Yes.
So one thing, piggyback on what my colleague in education was saying is that we say all this, we know our kids will get it. That's the easy part.
Yep.
But our instructional leaders in front of them still have that barrier for lack of comfort, flexibility, whatever it is. So if we're talking about what you showed us as far as the possibilities of what the world can be if we embrace AI, my wonder is what would you recommend to the education system? If today was the day you talked to the Secretary of Education, what would you recommend when it comes to our K-12, which is that foundation before they get to higher ed, as far as how to pivot to embrace it, because we can't run from it, as you told us?
Yeah, I think comprehensive education, I think we have to have every student understand what this is, what its pros and cons are, and then I would tell them you need to think about this like a calculator. If we don't start teaching kids how to use calculators, other countries' children are going to vastly outcompete us.
And first teachers to their defense, everyone's different.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and that's one of the other things I think will be beneficial is the potential for highly personalized education. I mean, when you think about our education system, it's currently set up based on technologies and ideas of the Industrial Revolution. We move every student through a block a year at a time, and they're all in the factory sequence. But students don't learn at the same pace, they don't learn in the same way, they learn different things socially better, and so different modalities of learning. But what if we had AI systems where the student could just ask it the questions? Another thing to really look into is Khan Academy. They've just, the TED Talk that whatever his name is, Khan, created, I think is a prototype for what the future of education will look like. Essentially, it's an interactive teaching session where the student's trying to solve math problems, and it's not giving you the answer, it's helping you to think through the problem and progressively get you closer to the answer on your own. But think of like how much time that could save, so it would free up teachers to actually do the things that they need to do rather than grading tests or yeah. And I don't know that every teacher is going to be prepared for this. I think it's going to be a struggle no matter what. Yes.
Do you think the implications of this will be on like higher education, like college? Because it feels like the system is just setting us up for failure. And what I find is a lot of people, like when I went to college, I was forced to take classes like business calculus that have no applicable application to me running my actual business, and it's putting me in massive amounts of debt.
Yeah.
The way I see it, it seems like it's like why even go that route? But what is that going to do to the traditional education system? It seems like the people, if we're going to move towards this, advancement where AI is handling this, it seems like the teachers here, they know less about it than the kids.
Yeah.
And so like it's just setting us up to failure and normalizing, hey, get in massive amounts of debt and then go out into a job environment where your job's going to be automated by the time you get the degree anyway.
So I have been in college on and off for 20 years now. Literally, when I went to college the first time in 1996, the things we were doing in that class are pretty much the same things I'm doing today, 20 years later. The only difference is they moved it on the internet. They didn't move it on the internet in a way that leverages the internet the right way. They essentially just lifted it and shifted it over to the internet. And so it's got the worst of both worlds is probably the best way to describe it. That has to change. And I know it's really tough to get large bureaucratic institutions to move. I mean, they're just massive. And something to think about is that, I know somebody that worked, I don't even remember what university it was that they worked at, but they said every year for almost 20 years, we've had our meeting about online learning. How long until we get the classes online? Well, there's some new technologies. We think we can probably get all of the university's classes online, maybe in another 5 to 10 years. And this happened every year for almost 20 years. Pandemic happened. 2 weeks later, the entire university, every class was online. They just didn't have the necessity to do it. I'm seeing some new colleges and new online education institutions, and I'm not talking specifically about like Udemy and stuff like that, though I think they've done some good things to move the ball forward, and Coursera especially. But some new universities like the Western Governors University, I believe it's in Colorado, that have really embraced technology. They are leveraging technology to have more personalized, individualized education. And I think we're seeing some pretty decent results out of that. So if people can prove this model and prove that it works, we'll probably see other larger universities begin incorporating it. Unfortunately, like Stanford, MIT, like all these big institutions I would expect to be leading the way are just lagging behind. But I think it's because there's so many layers upon layers of bureaucracy in the education system now that they just can't be agile and flexible.
I mean, I think the thing that I question is the whole validity of having a degree is to help you get a job.
Yeah.
And now, if we're going in, like actually running a business, when I'm interviewing people, I'm not asking them what degree you have. I'm like, can you solve the problem I have?
Yeah. Yep.
And the problem with the education system is they just say, hey, shut up and listen and do and learn what we're telling you to learn as part of the degree. They don't teach us to actually develop the skill sets that will help us in the world.
Yeah.
So I think it's going to go to private education where it's like, okay, if I want to be a marketer, I'm going to just go buy a course on how to do marketing or watch YouTube videos.
Yeah. I think, God, when I first started college, they were actually considering inverting university and community colleges so that you would learn your core foundational, like all the soft skills in your basic liberal sciences education at a university, and then you'd go off to a community college to get highly focused, specialized skills, like, oh, I'm going to do marketing, so I learned just marketing stuff. But that never took off, and I assume it's because the four-year universities just wanted to keep the students all 4 years because they make more money. But a model like that probably would have made more sense, where you just get your core education and your socialization, the things that you get out of college beyond just being in classes, and then go specialize after that. But I know, people value a 4-year degree largely because it says that you've committed yourself to something that's hard for 4 years, you're willing to stick it out, and you've learned a set of generalizable soft skills that make you valuable. Like, most people will not hire a manager unless they have a 4-year degree, and I believe that that's the reason why. Even though I know some people that have never graduated from college, well, even high school. I know a guy that's never graduated from high school that is the best manager I've probably ever seen in my life.
Well, that's the thing. I think the tricky part is, well, yes, that may be valuable to show you're committed to something. You're learning the wrong habits.
Yeah,
right?
even
people that will be successful are the ones that can learn and relearn,
Yep.
because it's changing on like a weekly basis. So we're actually setting them up to create this sense of entitlement around, hey, I got this degree, I deserve this, but it's like, what value have you brought to the market?
Potentially. I mean, you are learning how to learn, and I think that's one of the valuable things, but you can learn how to learn outside of school if you're autodidactic, like you're willing to put the time in yourself.
If we don't need that degree, what is going to be the mindset for high schoolers who are like, why does my grades even matter if I'm not going to college?
Great question. In fact, I've been asked this question so many times, I wrote an article on it. I summarized it, and I've thought a lot about this now. I've summarized it into 5 things that if we don't know what kids need to know because everything's changing so fast, what should we actually be teaching them? And the 5 things I narrowed it down to, if I can remember all of them, are we need to teach them high-tech skills because a lot of them are going to be in high-tech jobs. We need to teach them uniquely human skills because the jobs that will be left over are uniquely human. Nurses, teachers, stuff like that involve compassion, creativity, trust, blah, blah, blah. We also need to have T-shaped learning so that you're not super specialized in something so you can't adapt, and you're not so broadly focused on everything that you have no real value to the labor market. So that T-shaped learning. Then we need to teach them emotional resilience, mindfulness, all of these things, because the world is going to get progressively more stressful. And if they can't handle that, they are going to fail. And right now we're seeing it happen, I think. And then the last thing is we have to teach emotional resilience. Maybe it was, oh my God, I had it in my head and then I forgot. Emotional resilience.
Because I got some questions.
Oh, critical thinking. Because the world is going to, no matter what, critical thinking will be one of the most valuable skills. As anything, technology changes, critical thinking will still be valuable.
And I love the academic discussion concerning AI. This is not the discussion that they're having in boardrooms. And major corporations all around the world, as well as in the war room of the military.
Yeah.
See, just yesterday, a group of the top AI developers, including the guy who developed ChatGPT, as well as the folks at Google and a lot of the other major corporations all over the world, warned that in 5 to 10 years, we can have an apocalyptic event because of AI that ends in extinction.
Yeah.
And if you think that that's science fiction, you really need to read the list of the
Yep.
people who signed on to that. See, right now, even as we speak, China, Russia, and some of the UK countries are going rogue and trying to figure out how to destroy us through AI. So now it's being compared to things like a pandemic and things like nuclear war.
Yeah.
That's where we are. It's great to have this intellectual discussion concerning this, but there is a real threat posed by ChatGPT as well as AI in general. And the other thing that it does is it moves us closer to quantum computing. And everybody knows that what it takes now to do in 5 weeks with quantum computing, you'll be able to do in 5 seconds. So, love that. I don't use AI right now. I'm very familiar with it. I got started with it earlier. I don't use it now because you're opening yourself up. How many of you have Alexa? Hi Alexa, turn on my lights. Before you know it, Alexa's going to be controlling your life. I love your presentation.
Thank you.
It is a phenomenal presentation. But I just want everybody to dig a little deeper and understand what they're talking about in the boardrooms
Yep.
and in the war rooms all over the world. They're having a totally different discussion. In fact, they're scared of where it's going because you can't control it. So when you get AI talking to AI, you have a problem if you don't have the human paradigm included in there. There is no watermark. So when they say that people need to be transparent when they're in college and they need to tell you that they use AI to create a document, that's an honor system. Most people aren't honorable. So we really need, as leaders, people who are in rooms like this, we really need to begin to look at the bigger, broader picture. Jackson, I love your question, but we need to go to the next one.
But
And-
they both work together.
Yeah, that's
You
what
work
I'm talking
both
about.
ends to the middle to get
Sure.
your point.
And
Absolutely.
you may be happy to know I do consulting for a lot of Fortune 500 companies, as well as I've done training for the U.S. Air Force, the Space Force, and the U.S. Army. And as part of my requirements, they have to allow me to include a section on AI ethics in every training that I do.
In defense of AI, because even though we have ethics here, Russia's not going to honor those, China's not going to honor those, some of those countries in the UK are not going to.
Yes.
Sort of piggybacking a little bit on what you're saying, we know we have fake news and deepfakes, and there's a lot of fake information on the internet. And that's where something like ChatGPT gets their information.
Yeah.
How does it know what's real and what's fake? And also, why does it lie? I mean, do we
Yep.
understand why it lies?
So 3 things. Number 1, when we're training the data, we typically filter it out. We use what we consider to be very trustworthy sources. Well, okay, in the first layer, we just throw the entire internet at it because it's just trying to learn words. What word should come next? Then when we're doing the fine-tuned supervised learning on it, we essentially say, okay, what's in the scientific literature, what's in these journals, essentially using that in order to improve it beyond just predicting the initial words. Then we use reinforcement learning via human feedback in order to nudge it in the right direction afterwards. Like, okay, this answer is better than this one. Okay, this answer is better than that one, which gets it aligned with the answers we would expect. And then beyond that, it hallucinates because it doesn't know the right answer. But we can solve that with a technique that I'm using right now. In fact, I have a prototype I'd love to show everybody. I was going to do it next month, but I can't do next month anymore. It's called retrieval augmented generation, where we take a reputable source like our medical journal, our company's archives, any document that we believe is a reliable source of information as an organization. And then we break it up into little chunks, stored in what we call a vectorized database. And then anytime anybody asks a question of the chatbot, it'll send a request off. It'll find the blocks of text that are closest matches to it, pull those little blocks in, and then we tell it, based on this information, answer the user's question. And so then it grounds it in reality, and it reduces the hallucinations almost entirely. Unless you ask a question that's so outside of the scope of its knowledge, but we typically put constraints on it and say, only answer questions that we have provided you correct information for. And it fixes a lot of the problems. Literally, every company that I have talked to is racing to do this right now, or they hadn't heard about it, and as soon as I told them about it, they're racing, like they're putting teams on this as quick as they can, because it's changing everything.
Okay, so one thing that was in the news was an attorney got in trouble with the judge
Yeah.
because he used an AI-generated brief that had made up
Yep.
case information. So in that case, if you only trained your AI on a legal database,
Yep.
Lexis, for example, then it would only pull real information.
Yeah, you would essentially, it'd be like, Northwood Legal's repository, where it's all of the whatever case articles. So you wouldn't ask questions about how do you fix your automobile on this system.
Right.
You would have one from like Kelly's Blue Book that's just about automobile stuff or whatever.
Okay, so a human being is deciding what source information AI
Yep.
should rely on.
Yep, and I've found if you ask controversial questions, like, I want to say some controversial questions out loud, but I'm just not going to. But if you ask it like a politically controversial question, GPT-3 will just give you whatever it knows, but GPT-4, it gives you very nuanced, here's what we know on this side of the argument, and here's what we know on that side of the argument. It's up to you to make your decision. And I think that's very interesting, that it essentially provides both sides of the argument, so that it leaves it up to you to determine which is the correct answer. Yes.
I went to the Artificial Intelligence International Film Festival last month
That's cool.
in Park City, Utah.
Okay.
Saw them, it was a three-day festival, and I saw the most amazing AI movies. And the reason I bring it up is they're going to be doing it again November 12th through the 14th in Park City, Utah. And anybody that can go, it was amazing.
I might check that out.
And Park City, if you've never been there, it's about a half hour east of Salt Lake City. It's one of the most beautiful places you'll ever come
But
to.
it's cold in November.
It is cold in November, but after the heat here in the summer, it doesn't seem so bad.
In case anyone's interested, yes, we saw 379 slides. This is the longest presentation I've ever done. They typically are only 200 to 250
Is
slides.
that available?
Online, I haven't put it online yet, but I'll try doing that today. Yep, on my website. Yes.
So I have a question.
And I think we got about 30 seconds left, and then I'll have to let you guys go.
It's kind of open-ended, but
Should we just talk about it afterwards?
okay.
Okay, so in case anybody didn't hear, I'm unfortunately able to continue doing the Las Vegas AI Meetup because I'm doing AI research now at Johns Hopkins, so there won't be any meetings indefinitely. Hopefully once I get all caught up in another year or so, I'll be able to start doing this again. But if anybody would like to take it over, reach out to me and let me know, because I'd love to keep this going. All right, thank you very much.